because we had I forget what's the correct, a layover or something like that. Yeah, a layover. So we had to spend a night in Japan, but you know, things happen for a reason, and then it was a great turnout. And so why I was interested in traveling to China was kind of various reasons. One in particular was life enhancement for the most part. In today's world, especially me being a business student, I understand that it's a global economy, and so in order for me to be possibly, I guess I'll say, in order for me to reach the highest level of success that I can in business, or one of the highest levels, I need to be able to have that global mindset, that international mindset, in order to know that, hey, it's bigger than just Fayetteville, it's bigger than just America, it's a whole globe out there. So the whole global mindset and the experience make me more marketable, I guess you would say. I mean, when if I send my resume into an employer and I have this experience where I actually took a chance, I went outside America and I experienced different cultures or what have you, diversification, and somebody else sends in a resume and they don't have that same experience, it may give me a leg up depending on the employer and things of that nature, that whoever's looking at it. And just, I think those were like two major things. I mean, the whole life enhancement part of it.
Okay,
So yes, I went to India, and I went for the same reasons, to be more culturally aware of what's going on around me, because America is the melting pot. We have a lot of different cultures here, and we experience a lot here in America. So I wanted to go experience a different culture other than my own firsthand. So that was really important to me, as well as I wanted to ensure that when I went to the next steps in my academic career, that I was able to understand them, the processes that people go throughout life. And you don't really understand that when you're here and you're set in your own environment until you get out, outside of your environment. That's when you start to understand that. So I wanted to be sure that when I went to graduate school, which I plan to do, that I had the tools necessary to make me a global citizen.
The reason I went to the study abroad trip was I went to India with Brandon, but it was pretty much the same as everyone else's. I wanted to be more culturally aware, and it was offered, and I just decided to take the offer.
Okay, my question to the panel is, what one aspect of your past, your background, your education, can you identify as making you prepared for your study abroad experience?
One aspect made me more prepared was the ability that I don't give up easily. When I first went to India, it was a very, very, very big culture shock. I didn't do my research like I was supposed to properly. So when I came there, it was wow, it really just hit me. So I really had to persevere, especially with the weather and the different people that was there. It's very different.
I believe that one aspect that aided me throughout my past or my experiences was my, I guess you'd say my communication skills. Because I am a communication major, it really helped to be able to, even though we didn't speak the same language, I understood for instance, body language and things like that, for instance, when we're meeting the people. And even though it was very different as well, their happiness is way different than us as Americans, even when you greet people and things like that. But it was very good that I had these certain communication skills and I was knowledgeable of that helped me throughout the process.
Probably one of my greatest aspects or past experience, I would say first, that helped me prepare for the study abroad experience was the fact that I write down goals. And so one of my goals in life is to be a millionaire, actually, and possibly a billionaire. And so with my whole education and my background, with me being a business student, I'm taught in classes that you have to be open to this whole global experience in order for you to, I guess, have more opportunities and not be constrained by just what's going on in America. You have to be open to this whole globalness and opening up to the opportunities in other places. And so that kind of just I think that answers the question. So just my goals and my education both kind of led me to wanting to do this study abroad experience.
My next question is, what did you expect when traveling to your destination?
Honestly, I kind of didn't know what to expect. I know I didn't want to get sick. I think that was my major thing at the time when I was traveling to China. They had this flu going around, so it's don't eat certain things, and so that was one thing I didn't want to have to happen. So that probably was the major thing. Other than that, I kind of just went open for new experiences. I knew we had this itinerary that we'll be going to the Great Wall. We'll be traveling to some palaces and things of that nature. I thought that would be great. And so just being open to the environment and just kind of going in there without I guess like a closed mind or set things, and just being open to what's happening.
Can you see the question one more time?
What did you expect when you were traveling?
When I was traveling, first let me tell you, we went in the summer of 2012. So I was leaving my sophomore semester. So now that I'm a senior, I think totally different. But back then, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I had a very immature mindset, and I was not open-minded at all. I was very closed-minded, and what I seen on television, that's exactly what I thought I was going to get myself into. As far as India, I thought it was going to be very, very third world country, and we'd be sleeping in tents and walking barefoot, and I needed lots of hand sanitizer, and that's exactly what was told to me, like bring 5 packs of hand sanitizer. Don't touch anything, don't eat anything. So I was like, wow. I was definitely very, very aware that it'd be a different experience, but I didn't know because, like I said, I was very closed-minded. But once I got there, I was, I seen certain things that were, different of our culture, but it was also very, very eye-opening, I guess you could say.
My experience was very similar to Brandon. When I was on the plane, I remember India being really hot, so I wore some shorts and a tank top on the plane ride. The plane ride was like 18 hours, and when I got off the plane, everyone was looking at me crazy, like, why is she underdressed? And it's like, it was very shocking. And I brought a whole bunch of sanitizer. I was told, don't drink the water because you get sick and everything. So I went in a really closed mind, just like Brandon. But as soon as I got there, I had no choice but to really look around and see what it really was.
Do you think you spent enough time learning about the culture, the politics, the geography of your destination before you took the trip?
Absolutely not. I did the study abroad program through the Global Scholars Program, and we were actually supposed to go to Africa. So we spent a whole year learning African language, like Yoruba. So it really was just like we were going to go to Africa, and then at the last minute we went to India because I think there was a war in Africa. So I did not look. I really didn't research like I was supposed to.
I did a little bit of research, but I didn't do specific research. I just did like general research on India. So I had the Himalayas. That's the first thing I researched before even going there. So that was my mindset. My mindset was on the Himalayas and the mountains and cold weather. I knew it was going to be hot, but I was definitely really interested on the aspect of women's gender and how they're kind of told to be shunned away there, and they're covered up, like she was saying. She wore a tank top and people looked at her like she was crazy. So that's the aspects that I looked at it as far as research, like the cultural aspects, but I didn't really do too much of the geography. The politics was very different, and it didn't align with what we had going on here. So of course I was knowledgeable of it, but it wasn't something that I had did too much research on.
Yeah, I think I fall in line with the same. I guess our advice should be to you all, do a little bit more research, because I'm in the same as them. I didn't really do that much research. I think my main, like I stated last time, my main focus was just not to get sick, and so knowing what not to eat. And with the whole government, I think since I knew that we'll be with the group and we'll have a chaperone or what have you from China and things of that nature, I wasn't really expecting to get into too much of trouble, and so I didn't really do too much of that. As far as what was the other one? I think it was the culture. The culture I didn't really know what they're doing. Great thing about me was that I was in a group where I was the youngest person, I believe. I think I was the youngest person. So one of the great things was that we had this communication and email before the trip. And so, elders, we had people in a group that were doctors at locations or whatever. They're sending out information. We had other older people who were a little bit more responsible, what have you. So I didn't really have to do too much research. I did, luckily, I had older people sending me stuff to read about and stuff. So that's probably my preparation. Thanks.
My next question is, what was the most interesting cultural aspect of the trip?
The most for me was traveling to the Great Wall of China. I mean, to be a person of my age, of my background, African American, first generation college student, other things of that nature. Just hearing about the Great Wall in America, that probably was like the top. Once I made it to the top of the Great Wall, I was just like, wow. It was a very experience that I knew I know today that could impact not only me but my future generations to come. And so as long as it was almost like the guy, once they made it to the moon, it was like one small step for America or something like that, one big step for mankind. However that saying goes, it was kind of like that for me in the sense that once I made it to the top of the Great Wall, it was like, okay, this is my step. What's gonna be, my future child's step. I'm setting almost a bar for the next generation to come. To make bigger leaps than I have. And so the travel to the Great Wall and was probably one of the most, I guess, cultural. I mean, getting back to the culture of things, probably was one of the great culture aspects, and just learning about the history of the Great Wall. One interesting thing about the Great Wall that you all may not know is that it was built mainly during wartime, and it was built to keep horses out, I think, if I'm correct. That was the most shocking thing, because the wall is so tall. I don't know how big their horses was back then, but this is a tall wall for some horses. And so that was interesting to learn about, and yeah, thanks.
The most interesting cultural aspect that I would say would be the fact that the women are definitely inferior there. It was very different compared to here, because you can see now, I think the majority of you, as I look around, are women in here. And it was definitely different in there. It's a male-dominated country. And, I mean, that's interesting to see when you come from a country who women can walk outside and, like, barely nothing, and it's accepted. It's actually looked as, like, sexy here. But there, it's totally different. If you walk out there, they look at you like you're completely crazy. Like, I was even looking at women like they were like crazy when I would see them. Like my friends like, you can't walk out there like that. No. Because I was like just knowing how disrespectful it was. And as we got up higher, because we were, like she said, in northern India, we kept going up and up and up. So we went through the Himalayas, which is the mountains, and we got to like where you kind of like infiltrate yourself with the Buddhist population. So it's the Buddhists and the Hindus, and because you're close to the Nepal border. And that was even worse, because we seen missionaries where it was just all women. And for me as a male to even walk in there and step foot, like they were, all I see was their eyes, and they wouldn't even speak to me or anything. Like they couldn't speak English, they had like shaved heads, and it was just a very, very big cultural aspect that I took with me. And I guess you just learn to see how like your freedom here as a female is very big in our country. So I respect that about our country, I guess you could say.
One of the most interesting cultural aspects I experienced was when we went to the Golden Temple. And I'll never forget this experience. Me and Brandon was actually just talking about it. It was very, very, very hot outside. And out of respect for the culture, we had to take our shoes off. And the ground was made of, I think it was marble. The ground was very, very hot. And as we were walking through the temple, we actually saw them doing their prayer. And it was very interesting to see how they're just walking normal, and then everyone stops and they're engaged in the same thing. And it was a very beautiful sight and interesting.
Okay, my next question to you is, what do you consider your main source of information for your study abroad trip?
My main source of information was the actual trip. I learned so much from Dr. Malhotra throughout the whole trip. I think the most information I've learned was when we stayed at Lovely Professional University. And There they taught us language, they taught us dance. We ate the food for a week, and they just told us pretty much a brief rundown of what you should know about India.
The resource that I think took with me and that was best for me was Dr. Malhotra. Like she said, he was the one who oversaw the trip, and he was one of our chaperones, but he was from the country. So everywhere we went, he gave us a heads up what we would see, and then as we left, we got back in the car. Whatever feelings I had that I wanted to express, because you know, as a person, you want to express, especially as an American, right then when something happens, you want to express that feeling. But in that country, when you're being respectful, you can't do that, so it kind of constricts you, and it makes you feel like it's a really weird feeling. So when I would get in the car, I wanted to express it with all my friends, and he allowed me to open up, which listening to him after I expressed my feelings kind of gave me a different perspective on things about the country, because like I said, I was very closed-minded. So for instance, I could just give you an example. We went to McDonald's, and I was really excited to go to McDonald's because after a week of eating only rice and bread because I didn't eat anything else, I was very, very hungry, and I just really wanted McDonald's. But then when we got there, it was I had to watch what I was ordering because they only use vegetable oil. They don't use any type of, we use beef battered grease for our French fries and chicken nuggets. So everything was vegetable, and it tasted totally different. And you had to basically, you didn't have to pay for the ketchup packets, but they recycled them. So what you don't use, you put back in this little thing, and they clean them off, and they reuse them again. And the cups that you get as far as a water cup, that's the actual cup you get for soda there. So when I left out of there, I had a lot of thoughts that I wanted to say. I wasn't happy with the food and things like that. But then I got in the vehicle, and he was just, informing me, and he made me knowledgeable of this. And then I started looking at it as an economy perspective and recycling, and it was totally different than when I went in. I was just hungry. So yeah.
Thank you. So for me, my major source of information during the trip was we were connected with the Asian Institute, one of those, and so we pretty much had people from there guide us around. We had people who were, I guess you call them travel guides or what have you, and so similar to Brandon and Miss at the end. I had somebody from that country who knew about what is correct and why this is happening and things of that nature. So I guess the major point is, if any of you are interested in going to study abroad, don't think you're just going to go there by yourself and that you won't have somebody from that country to be able to assist you throughout the trip. Thanks.
My next question might apply more to Chris than the others because we as the business school visited actual businesses, factories in China. So for the other students, when I ask, the question is, what was the most interesting business experience of this trip? Feel free to talk about going out and shopping or hitting the markets or, other factors like that.
All right, so the most interesting business experience for me was that we actually got to visit companies that was doing international business. So we actually sat down with people from the port, Shanghai ports, which is the biggest ports in the world. So this is the people that are importing and exporting to other countries. We had presentations from executives from that company. Then we went to another company of a guy who started out in a small location, maybe let's say the size of your dorm, just for you who stay in dorms or apartments or whatever, just making healthcare products for, I guess, the local area. And now he's grown from there to be this person, as his company is importing and exporting to other countries, supplying their hospitals with the things that they need, like gowns and face masks and things of that nature. So just seeing how stuff like that is possible, and how this guy started small, and how these companies started small and they grew to be these bigger companies, I think was very inspirational for me. And also a good business experience on a lower scale, I guess I'll say, was the bargaining experience. I think just about everywhere you went besides the major, I guess the McDonald's or the mall, you was able to bargain. Somebody say, hey, I want $5 for this, you could say, no, I'll give you $2.50. And then they say, no, I want $4 at least. And then you say, no, I'll give you $3. So that was an experience that you may not have in America. And it was just something that you can have a little fun with or whatever.
So we definitely had some business experiences to talk about. We actually visited Procter & Gamble, which is, you may know it better as P&G, which is a company who makes like Dove soaps and Tide and all these different products that we use here in America. Like if you look on the back of it, you'll see P&G. So they actually, it was the time we were there, it was during the Olympics. So it was very important because they were sponsoring the Olympics. And we went to the company and we got to meet the people and we walked through. And while we were there, I got interested because prior to that, we went to a seminar about green chemistry, which is something we don't think about here. So when we went to the company, I was really looking at it from that aspect as far as like, you know, recycling and things like that. And it's crazy because we were riding up in our little American van that was paid for with air, and all these people were walking on the side, and you see cows like laying, and you see all these shelters and homes made of bags and things like that. And I think it was raining that day. And then we get to the gates, and it looked like the Wizard of Oz. That's the only thing I can think of, because you got to think Procter & Gamble is a U.S. company, so it's there in India. They have like people to facilitate the company there and to work and all that type of things, but it's a U.S. company. So the grass was actually greener on the other side. It's right in the middle of like all this poverty, and then you see this big U.S. company with like fake grass, pearly gates, nice fixtures and things like that, and you walk in and you're like, wow, this is exactly what it looks like at home. But then they walk out, these people who are working in the company, and then they have to go out to these impoverished situations. So that was really eye-opening to me, and I actually want to continue that research throughout my graduate school process about how we as Americans go in like these developing countries and we kind of just make money, and we don't really care too much what it's going on outside of the doors.
My business aspect is the same as Brandon's, and we went to the Procter & Gamble plant, and one thing that I found interesting was they were talking about a box of Tide, and in America, you know, you buy, I don't know, what, 32, 64 loads and stuff like that, but they actually sell the individual loads for the people who can't afford to buy it in bulk at one time. So they'll sell one load of Tide for maybe like 2 rupees, and they'll sell the big thing for more expensive. So the less people that, well, the poverty people that can afford it, they can afford to buy the Tide. And also the trade and barter system, where pretty much when you go to like the little villages, I can't remember what the town was. It was in the Himalayas, but it was pretty much like Shimla. Pretty much like you can say, I give you $2 for this, no, $3, $4, no.
Okay, my next question is, what was the most significant impact of your study abroad trip for you?
The most significant impact for me was seeing the poverty. I remember, well, I was just looking over some of my pictures before I came here, and I seen a little girl. She couldn't be no more than like 6 or 7, and she was holding a baby, and she was begging for money. And like they didn't call us Americans, they called us chocolates. Like, I don't know why they called us chocolates. But they were begging for money, and then they, like, she didn't have no shoes, so it definitely was eye-opener to let me know that, you know, you have to be thankful for what you have.
That's very true. That's the same thing for me as well. The poverty, because like I said, didn't do too much research prior to coming. I think the most research I did is on the plane, because it was an 18-hour flight. I watched Slumdog Millionaire. And that's exactly what it was like people holding babies and making you feel as if you have to give them money, but it was just very, very different than here. So the other aspect I think that I took with me the most, it was very, very important to me, was the green chemistry aspect that I was speaking about earlier. We don't think about that here at all. We just think of like you guys are like chemistry majors or STEM majors, and you're like, oh, this is this. You don't think about like how certain people are like developing chemistry to save and cure cancer, but that's basically the thing that's causing it. So like there are green ways to produce this chemistry, you know, so that way you won't develop something that hurts somebody in the end, and you don't have to create nothing to fix it. So that was very interesting to me as far as like how they handle waste and things like that in that country.
All right, thank you. So, yes, the poverty was very impacting, and I'm glad they brought that up, because I was going to stick to a different route. The poverty in China is maybe, if not worse, almost the same, or what have you, definitely in the same ballpark as in India. And there was a lot of shelters. It was kind of like, in China, it was, okay, we got this nice hotel, but you probably shouldn't drink the water. You know, it was like, so you have this very like high expensive thing, and then you have this very low quality, you know, other stuff. And so that was impacting. But for me, to be honest with you, I think the most significant impact, going back to my whole business, just mindset, was just wanting to being more inspired to want to do international business with other countries.
My next question is, how did the trip influence your perceptions of the foreign country? And feel free to discuss the people that you interacted with, the government, and also the culture.
All right, so China, what I liked about China is they like, I'm gonna say they like African Americans. I don't know if it was, I don't know. I think they really like African Americans to the point where like some of them would just walk up to you and like, I think somebody said they try to rub the skin color off or something like that. They made a thought like the person had like drew painted mud on them or whatever. But you know, like when we went to places, I mean, people would just want to take pictures with us. People like treated us like we were famous, and so that was probably one of the biggest influences of the perceptions of the foreign country. And people were very kind there. The people who actually was taking us around and things of that nature, they gave us gifts at the end of it. And so one of the ladies, she cried. I mean, it was after like 10 days and she started crying. So I mean, very, very, I guess, emotional type of people. Well, I wouldn't say that. Maybe just her. But definitely very kind people, and people who like to see, I guess, and accept other cultures, I guess I'll say.
Okay. The trip influenced my perception of the foreign country, India. Like I said, when I went in, I was closed-minded, so I had a different perception, as of course, when I left because of all the experiences that I went through. But the most important thing that I kept thinking about is, like, I just kind of felt sad when I left. And I didn't know if it was because I felt sad because I was leaving India, or if I felt sad for all the experiences that I had seen, because I was just really sad. And I kept feeling like, you shouldn't feel sad for this country. You shouldn't feel sad for this country. And then when I got on the plane back to here, and then I came to America, I remember I had to get a cart from India to get all my bags because I bought a lot of stuff and had to pay for an extra bag. So when it was free, and they were so willing to help me, and it was great. But then I get back to America, and you hit right in the airport, and you have to pay $5 for one of them carts to walk around. And I was like, I kind of feel sad for our country. So it was definitely an eye-opener. So that perception kind of like stayed with me. It's like, you know, you can't feel sad for like your country or their country. You just kind of figure out what you can do to not implement that in your own life. And that really stuck with me.
One of the things that was the most influential was the different views, like how we went to Shimla, then we went to the Himalayas, then we were in Chandigarh, Punjab, and it was like there were many different aspects of everything. When you went to Chandigarh, you seen the buildings and you stay in these nice hotels, and I actually think it was Chandigarh that we went and we was able to eat steak. Like we were actually able to eat beef. And then you go down to Shimla and like the mountain villages, and they use water from waterfalls, like fresh water. And it was influential to know that India is not just a poverty state. It's not just a poverty nation. It has many different aspects.
Okay, what was your most challenging aspect on this study abroad trip? What was the most challenging thing that you had to work through?
The most challenging thing for me was the weather and the food. I disliked the food, and just like Brandon was saying, we went to McDonald's, and I was so happy. I actually pretty much ate McDonald's all the time, and rice, and the weather. It was really hot, and then at one point it rained for a few days, and it even got even hotter. So definitely the weather and
I would say most definitely them two aspects, the weather and the food, was the most challenging for me. The food was, I don't want to say horrible, but the smell when I first got there, it just smelled like an odor to me. So it made my stomach just turn. So when I got the food in front of me, I just had this perception of just don't eat it. So it was really bad, and I got really sick because I wasn't eating. I remember like one day I like slept the whole day in a booth. Like I sat at the restaurant and I just laid down and just slept while they were all hanging out because I just couldn't take it. And another challenging aspect was just myself. Like the fact that, like I said, like I like to be very, very liberal, and I like to speak my mind. And I like to speak my opinion and say what I feel. When I say it, this is how it's going to come out. But throughout that country, like I had to learn to respect myself and the people around me. So like I was representing Fayetteville State University, the honors program, and all these other organizations. And like most definitely just their country woke up my eyes to that and made me see that you can't kind of just speak on how you feel every moment of the day.
One of the most challenging, well, two challenging things for me, being that I was like in summer school and also involved with other organizations on campus or what have you. I had some projects going on that I was kind of like the lead of. I had delegated it out, but I had delegated some of the responsibilities out. But while I was in China, just I guess being stressed about what's going on in America, is things moving how you needed to move and things of that nature, was kind of challenging for me. Another challenging thing is that being that I'm a graduate student, have a one-bedroom apartment, have other responsibilities like bills and things of that nature, and mainly most of my finances come from student loans. The trip was kind of expensive for me compared to maybe some of my peers who went, in the sense that some of them have their careers and things of that nature. And so the finance part of it, we definitely got funded. I mean, the cost was heavily discounted, so it was great in that regard. But being able to maybe socialize and go out to places at night and stuff of that nature with my peers, and even go out to places during the day sometimes wasn't really possible for me. And so because of my financial situation, and so one piece of advice that I learned was that whatever you think the trip is going to cost, double it.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today. We've run out of time, and I want to hear some loud applause for these students that took time out. And on a final note, just like these three students said, it is an awesome experience. It looks great on your resume, and it opens up your mind to different cultures. And I strongly encourage anyone here, if you're interested in traveling abroad, contact me or Dr. Tomlinson. Every year we're going somewhere. We're going to China this year. Next year I'm shooting for Eastern Europe, preferably not Ukraine, okay, for all of you who are following up on current events. But once again, thank you. And my name's Dr. Boris Abbey. Just search Boris on the UNC FSU website if you're interested in traveling abroad. You'll find me, send me an email, call, and I will help you out as much as I possibly can. Thank you.